Hi, this is Chris Hawkins, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm Daz. This is my story pod, and I've got a great guest coming up. He's got a book coming out called Jurgen Said to Me, Jurgen, Klopp, Liverpool, and the Remaking of a City. I can't wait to read it. I think it's coming out in June or July. He's a regular on Anfield Rap, and he's also a senior community engagement officer at James's Place. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But I welcome Dan Morgan to the pod. It's great to have you on. I know, the last couple of weeks have been not what we wanted or expected, but you know what? We keep going, don't we?
Yeah, it's been a tough ride. Doing this just after Everton. The fixture for me, I look for when the fixtures get announced as the one that you do not lose under any circumstances, under any context. You just don't go to Goodison and lose. And I was having to think before about the last time we lost there and how old I was 23. So yeah, it's been a long old time. Jurgen Klopp's record hasn't been great down the years, but yeah, to have the ways in which Liverpool have lost games of football, and obviously the wider context of that with the managers last season, with the title race, with the thing that we all wanted, the romance. We wanted the fairy tale ending. It's been a testing few weeks if you're a Red, for sure.
Well, at least we've got four matches left. So all I want the lads to do is like get it together. Show some grit in these last four matches, and see where we are. And everybody's still saying twists and turns, but I think the twists and turns are probably with us and not with City or Arsenal. So I just want the lads to show the next game. Just get 3 points, get back to winning ways, and that's it. We'll see. Give Klopp a good send off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I looked before about points around the last 9 games of the season, and it was interesting, really. We currently got 7 out of 15 available points, so the best we can get is 19. In the past 3 seasons, we've hit 23 points out of a possible 27. And then you have to go really back to all the way to 17-18, where we get 15 out of the 27 from the last 9 games. And you think about 17-18, it's a really interesting season in loads of ways, in that, it feels like Liverpool are on the cusp of something. It feels like there's the journey. There's only the beginning of what's to come. There's the patchwork of what Jurgen Klopp is going to do, not has done, is going to do. And 17-18 is a really interesting, I think in loads of ways, it's a really wonderful season, because, you have all of these setbacks. Like, you think, for example, I don't think it's 2 straight away. The biggest ones, really, you get beat at Old Trafford. And then that's the night that, Boss Night holds an event, and LA gets sung for what is about, I think I put it in the book because I interviewed Sean O'Donnell for it from Boss Night. It gets sung for about 15 minutes, stop, it just gathers pace and momentum, and there's this just huge defiance around getting beat at Old Trafford. And there's the biggest one, of course, which is Kiev, and losing in a Champions League final. And I was there, and it felt like the world was only looking at us, even though we just lost that game. It felt like, this was just the beginning. This was the start. We were gonna build. We were going to seize this moment. We were going to really, really build this momentum. And now the context is totally different, because we're at the end of something. And so, I agree with you that I think the team needs to show something now and finish the season as possible, regardless of what that means. If it means 3rd place, then it means 3rd place. But you finish seasons a mentality of going into the next one and achieving something else. And whether or not the fact remains that won't be with this manager, whether or not it is with Arne Slot or somebody else. Liverpool need to carry that momentum through, because they're going to need people to believe in this side next season, despite the fact that Jurgen Klopp isn't there. And, that is something that is fundamental in terms of us and our journey with them. The players won't change. You might get one or two in transition. You might get players leave. You might get players come. I don't think there'll be a ton of changes given what we outlaid last summer. So we've got to believe in that side. We've got to believe in that squad. We've got to believe in that team. And then we've got to believe in the fella who's going to be leading them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, Dan, let's go back, when you were a kid, like, when did you really started supporting Liverpool? Because, I know I went when I was 6 years old, with my granddad, and I this was 76, so I'm a lot older than you lot. And it was just something I couldn't comprehend at 6 years old. It wasn't until I probably was about 10 or 11 where I really started to figure out things about the football club and the players. How was it for you?
Yeah, I remember I went to Villa at home in '92, and I don't remember much about it. Remember the old main stand and the old Annie Road, but just, fleeting split-second memory. But my grandma lived and still lives on Priory Road, stone's throw away from Anfield. She still goes out and tells people off if they litter, which I love. So, I had that geographical affinity to Liverpool Football Club, because it was literally where I spent a lot of my childhood, and it was part of my development. It was part of my family sort of patchwork, if you like, of where I grew up. And then I think the second stage was the 90s and the product of the Premier League, and it becoming this sort of, almost, this really sort of almost spellbinding semblance of entertainment, and just something that was, it had flashing colours, it had, flashing kits, and it had, music to soundtrack it. And, Liverpool were not great, but, at the same time, they were still Liverpool in a way. They were on the cusp of trying to get back to something that, you could never really get a semblance of, being that young. And then, I think for me, the real sort of icing on the cake was the treble season, when I really started following Liverpool. Went to a lot of away games that season, went abroad that season in 2000, 2001, and you just got, the dopamine, the drug then hits you, doesn't it? You just know what that feeling of winning is like, and you want it more and more, and it stays out with your mates, and it's, it's effervescent, it's eternal youth, and that's it. Then you're in, and I think there was those three stages with me, and that took me to about the age of 15, and then you sort of wedded to it after that, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it's not just the football, is it? Like it
No.
is the hanging out with mates, like let's go for a pint before the match, or especially away days in Europe, just the traveling, even though it can be a massive pain in the arse. You're with your mates, and you go to places that you probably never would, look on a map and go, that's where I'm going on holiday.
Yeah.
We go to Bulgaria, Hungary,
Sure.
wherever, and that's what it is the trains, the planes, the boats. It just makes for boss stories, and that's what I because I live over in the States now. That's one of the biggest things I miss, is just hanging out with my mates back home and going to all these away days.
I would say as well, you can sort of bookmark your life based on, for me anyway, I can bookmark my life based on football and music. So I can tell you more better where I was if I try and recollect a certain football game or a certain song of a certain time, then I can, days or actual things that have happened in my life. But if you tell me, if you'd ask me when Vladimir Smicer scored the winner against Chelsea, I'd have probably said, oh, spring 2002, and I'd probably be right. And that's but then you sort of you remember other things around that, don't you?
Who was your like boyhood hero?
Um, Boyhood, as a child, Robbie was just and it wasn't the thing about Fowler is when you think back to him, it wasn't fantastical. He was that good. Like, you knew you were watching a genius, a magician, a sort of generational talent in terms of a finisher. But I'll always say, and I say it to this day as someone who's watched football for most of my adult life, Steven Gerrard was the greatest player I've ever seen on a football pitch.
Mm-hmm.
He could 10 out of 10 so many attributes that that other players have. He had the passing ability of a Trent or a Thiago. He had the tackling of any sort of worldly midfielder that you wanted in your side. He was quicker than people thought. He could cross a ball on a sixpence apart Beckham and whoever else you want to put in there. He was the best right back in your side. He was the best whole midfielder in your side. He was the best number 10. He was the best right winger, despite the fact that he hated playing there. He was for the time the best player in his position wherever he played across world football. He remains, and not by some distance, but easily as a go-to. And this isn't nostalgic either, in terms of just pure ability from what I've seen out of footballers. He remains the greatest footballer I've ever seen in the flesh.
Yeah, well, I mean, and for a player to basically put the whole team on his shoulders,
Yeah.
there wasn't a player around that could possibly do that apart from him. The age-old chat about like Scholes and Lampard and Gerrard, they're not even in the same sentence for me. Just not. He just did everything. I mean, Scholes, was good at what he did. Lamps was good, but not even in the class that Gerrard was. I mean,
not for me.
The West Ham FA Cup final, he just took the ball by the horns, and same with Istanbul, and in the Napoli game at Anfield, where he scored a hat trick. He was just like, I'm not having this. I'm not having it.
Yeah.
And for me, as a child, it was Kevin Keegan, because he was just the first amazing player I'd really attached to, and then he sodded off to Hamburg after a year.
Yeah.
But then for me it was John Barnes, just because I'd never seen a footballer do what he did. But yeah, Stevie's just and I think the biggest thing what people try and dig, especially for us and for Stevie, is the slip. But that just, it happens in football. It happens to the best players in the world. It just wasn't meant to be, and I think that's my only regret for him, and I'm sure that's his regret, is that he never won the league with us.
Totally, yeah. He was a tour de force for me. Like I said, he was, in terms of pure athleticism as well, he was just on a different planet. And I think this becomes a stylistic thing, because you might love players who have a bit more, flair. You might love centre halves. You might love knocks. Whatever. It becomes about what you like in a footballer. In the same way that if I'm pretty sure as Wayne Rooney played for Liverpool, it'd be a close toss-up between the two of them, because I loved Rooney as a player. Absolutely adored him. Just thought he was phenomenal. Thought he was everything you'd want out of a footballer in your side. Thought he was, he was so pivotal to Man United over those years. By far and away, for me, the best player for a steady number of years. And Rooney, like Gerrard, was an all-rounder in that sense. Could do everything, but done everything with just raw ability. and also, just sheer sort of poetic, gorgeous aesthetic class at times. And so, how do you marry those two things up and say that that isn't a unique footballer, that isn't, that worldly talent paired them wearing it? The fact that they both come out of, really tough estates in Liverpool. One of them I grew up in as well at the same time. So I can attest to is a credit to the city and credit to them.
What's your favourite like Gerrard moment apart from Olympiacos and apart from the FA Cup? Because those are two of the obvious ones.
I remember being in Goodison in the treble season. We played Everton in September. It was not long after 9/11, and we played Everton, and we were getting beat 1-0, and it was around that time. It was the story of the derby, really. Liverpool would just turn up at Goodison and just throw a bit of a brain fart in, really. And Gerrard, they're getting beat 1-0. I think Kevin Campbell scores early. And I'm at the Bullens, but I'm in the Everton end of the Bullens, close to the Gladys Street. And Gerrard picks the ball up. And he's think about him when he's younger. He has all the growing pains and stuff. But when you looked at him in the flesh, when you were at games, physically, just looked head and shoulders above people. Looked like, he had a foot on people at times. And he's got the skinhead and he's got the look and stuff. Picks the ball up edge of the box. And there's nothing really on for him. He's got a player, I think it's Gary Naismith, square in front of him. Just drops his shoulder so eloquently to the left, shifts to the right, and I'm right behind it, and he just unleashes this arrow. And honest to God, I'm not sure the keeper had even got off his feet to dive, and it nearly ripped the net off. And he does that celebration along the Bullens Road where he sticks his tongue out and he cups his ear, and there's just bottles of Coke flying at him and all kinds, lighters, the lot. And I'm pretty sure I've seen a couple of mobile phones, and he wasn't there back then, they were bigger. But I just remember thinking, he's on another planet. And the thing was that the reason why that moment sticks out is because derbies were just blood and guts, and they were horrible. And there was nothing about them that screamed, world-class moments. And I'd argue to agree still now, the concept of something beautiful happening on a football pitch in a Merseyside derby, especially at Goodison Park, even over the years, you think some of the goals Liverpool have scored, they've never really been moments of sheer class from a player. And that, for me, I just fell in love with him then as a footballer. Thought that is one I'll always stick with, because he just grabbed it and just was like, this isn't happening on me. And he was from Brighton, and that was another reason why they hated him most, because he knew it, he grew up with it, he lived it. And yeah, I think that for me, there's so many big ones. There's a few where I've sort of, I've sort of thought, I'm not too sure in terms of some of the other stuff he's done on a pitch. I remember one at Portsmouth where he scores a free kick and he just runs to the cop and he's sort of beating his chest, and I think he's saying, I'm the fucking man. And I just thought, nah, I don't like that. If he was, so you just have little moments, you have these journeys with a footballer, people you don't know, people you have no affinity to on a personal level, but as players, you create this connection with them, and you go on that sort of road, that path with them, especially for him as he's done his whole career at Liverpool. So I'd say that Everton one, but there's so many as a player that you remember that he was just unbelievable. He was just another level for me on loads of ways.
Well, watching him, I really like how he kind of discusses, Torres and Suarez. Yeah, and he's just playing with Suarez was just something else, I mean, you go back to, Everton as well, like Suarez and Gerrard, and, some of the crazy passes from Gerrard and then the goals from Suarez. I mean, what's your favourite partnership? Is it Suarez and Gerrard or the Torres era?
Yeah, Suarez was always tainted for me with the stuff that came with him, and some of the stuff that happened with him. I always had a sense of feeling a bit unsettled with him. You always felt like, for me anyway, something was around the corner, and you do sort of abandon that in 13, 14 because he is just so good, and you sort of decide you're going all in. But yeah, I think for me, Gerrard in the 10 and Torres in front of him. You just watch that Madrid game back, for example, at Anfield, and they just tear them to pieces. Like that is for the generation of supporters something that they'd never seen before. They'd seen Liverpool winning the European Cup, but it all felt a bit giddy, and it felt like we were sort of really overperforming and riding a huge crest of a huge wave. But to watch a Liverpool side spearheaded by them two display that much class, I think you just had to sit up and say, okay, this is the first time in my life that I've actually seen Liverpool be Liverpool in inverted commas, that I'm actually seeing a reputation be upheld in loads of different ways. And the two of them were just, yeah, they were unplayable. And the thing about them was they look like they enjoy playing with each other. That they sort of sort each other out, and they really, really had that sense of I'm gonna trust you on a football pitch. And you had other operators behind them, a lot always in there, you have people who could facilitate in loads of ways. So yeah, I think those two, and those only a brief period, but definitely until we get the Klopp. I'd throw Suarez and Sturridge in there as well, by the way, in their own way. They had that really amazing partnership where they just looked like two individual forwards performing together, if that makes sense. But I think until we get to Klopp, it's definitely Gerrard and Torres from what I see in Liverpool.
Yeah, I just think when Torres cut his hair, that was it. There was something after, like as soon as he cut his hair, he just didn't seem
Some kind of Samson effect.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, oh man, because he was one of my favorite players as well. It was just great to watch, like him and Stevie telepathic.
Yeah.
Stevie just knew where Torres was going to go, and that's
Yeah.
you bring it up, you know, in today's world, and you're just like, I wish some of our forwards right now had telepathy and knew what was going on. But it's kind
Yeah.
of a good segue to bring in, the Klopp era, and this is your first book. How long did it take for you to? I mean, when did you just sit down and go, all right, I'm going to write a book about Jurgen Klopp and the city and what he's brought?
It was after the FA Cup final in 2022. So I live in London now, and went the game that day, roasting hot day, spent it with friends, just really felt like of a time. These were our days. These were the days that this guy was giving us. And I think if you remember, around that time, he just signed a contract extension to 2026. And we won the FA Cup. Obviously, we'd won the double, League Cup and an FA Cup, domestic cup double, but we miss out on the league by a point again on the final day. The European Cup final is the final, and Paris becomes its own thing in that. And on the pitch, Courtois has the game of his life, and you play that game out 10 times over, it doesn't end that way. But I just had this overwhelming sense of, I guess, of love and appreciation for him. And I'd worked in football full time for a couple of years, and was writing full time and editing full time. And I've been writing for the Anfield Rap since 2017, and in lots of ways it felt like the right time to write a book. And I do believe that that is something that people need to consider when they are doing it, because it's such an outlay of work and time and effort, and there's such an impact on your life. But I sat down and I spoke to a former colleague who I have a lot of trust in and really rate as a writer, and I just said, let me just troubleshoot here with you. Let me just just throw a few things out. And we got to the idea of writing a book about Jurgen's impact on the city of Liverpool, and to do that from a perspective of real stakeholders in the city, people who keep Liverpool ticking every day, people who are working, living, propping up the community, not just in Liverpool, but from beyond as well. And it really then just wrote itself. A lot of it now on Flexion, it was my first book, and I was sort of doing it by, the seat of my pants in a lot of way. But it it was all there. It was ready to come out, and I did sort of just really, really just sort of will on that momentum until I got everything that I needed to get out. And the one thing I'll always say was that I never hit a rough patch in writing it. I never hit a dry patch or a part where I just thought, this is really hard, I'm struggling to get through this element of it. It was all there. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew who I wanted to speak to. It needed polishing because I knew that if I carry on this momentum and get it all out, then I'll basically have the book there, and the other stuff like editorial stuff that can come later. Like, it doesn't matter if a comma's in the wrong place. That's that's not the important thing right now. The important thing is the content, is the actual story that you're telling. So I actually found it a really enjoyable process. I didn't enjoy that summer because, I was sort of looking out my window, people at the pub, and people enjoying the daylight and having evenings after work, and I just squiddling away and typing. But ultimately, it was a very acceptable labour of love because I loved writing and I loved getting it out there and loved getting it down. And as luck should have it, or however you want to define luck, I've had the opportunity to bring it out now at the time in which the manager's calling time on his career, which was just happenstance. The book was scheduled to come out in March 2025, but the manager decided to do what he'd done, and I was lucky that I had 95% of the thing done at that point. So we're able to bring it out now at that time when hopefully everyone's captured that feeling of what he's brought to us as people and as a place. Really.
Are you nervous for the release?
I'm not, and I'm not somebody who deals well with self praise, but I think it's a good book, and I think it's something I would like to read, and I think I've created a good piece of work. I think I've created a project that is interesting, and I think that on that basis alone, then no, I'm not nervous because I think I can be proud of it no matter what. And also, it helps. I've talked to some journalists and people who are invested in football whose written words and whose involvement in football I really respect. And I've asked them would they read it and asked them what they thought and asked them if they'd be willing to provide some reviews for it. And I've had some really nice words come back, like I say, from people who's standing in the game and whose style of writing about football I've really taken a lot from over the years. So that's always nice, and that always gives you a bit of confidence. But I think it's a book, and I think I've written it in a way which is sincere. And the way I would describe it is, the book has four characters really. The four characters are Jurgen, they're the city of Liverpool, they're the football club, and then there's me, and I'm sort of the fourth protagonist. I'm in the book the least of those four characters, but there's a little bit of my story in there as well. And I think that's really how I wanted to do it. That the city of Liverpool and the people who tell the story of the city of Liverpool and their Liverpool is the most important thing. Yeah, he said recently, which I found really interesting in an interview. He said you'll find plenty of books about him, but none from him. And I guess the best way I can describe what I've done is that it's ultimately a book for him.
Mm-hmm. So you obviously wouldn't mind him picking it up then.
Well, some people have asked me this. People have said, did you try and interview him? I said no. People have said, are you going to try and give him a copy of it? And I'm ultimately left at saying that if I approached him and said, here's a book on how you changed the city of Liverpool, he'd probably over the edge, because that's the person he is. He ultimately, to coin his own phrase, strives to remain the normal one. He strives to remain just the guy from the Black Forest, as he describes himself. So to heap that sort of status and responsibility on him, you probably hate it in lots of ways. So, he might pick a copy of it up. I hope he does when he's on a beach somewhere or he's playing tennis or doing whatever he's going to do with his life post Liverpool. But knowing him, he probably won't. He'll probably just say that's a load of bumf because I'm just a normal fella. So why is this lad writing about me changing the city when I think deep down he probably knows he did in loads of ways.
100% he did. I mean, he's more than a football manager. So that's my next question. What has Jurgen meant to you over these past, 8+ years?
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I feel like, I don't know if you agree to this, but life ultimately becomes about moments and about memories. And I talked before, bookmarking your life through football and music and stuff like that. And, when this time passes and enough time passes, we will all, as Liverpool supporters, look back on Jurgen's time with just, a fleeting millisecond thought. But I think what's important is, what feelings will that thought bring? And for me, it will always be a sense that, he made a place come alive. He brought a city to life. I remember I used to do Radio City Talk at the top of St John's Beacon, a very famous landmark in Liverpool. I used to do that every Monday, 5 till 6, with an Evertonian, a warm Evertonian, a friend who's still a friend called David Fahili. And we'd go on the radio and we'd talk about Merseyside football for an hour. And the first thing to mention was that, there's nothing better than doing live radio. It's intoxicating. It's just such a drug in loads of ways. So I love local radio. I love live radio. I always will. But I always remember when it was Jurgen and when it was, at the start of Jurgen's tenure, especially around the time that, he gets announced, I used to run to the tower. I used to finish work in the city centre and I used to leg it as quick as I could to get to the tower. And sometimes I'd go just to wait outside the recording studio at the top of the tower and just taking the panoramic view of the city, because the city felt on fire. I always try and describe it as, it felt like the kitchen party when everywhere else was shut. It felt like the place that was still open. It felt like the place where everyone had eyes on. And it was, what Wigan's created is the thing that, even though they won't admit it, every other football fan wants from their experience of the game, from their investments, from their involvement in football. They want to feel like, first and foremost, the fella representing them is someone they can get behind, but they want to feel like the thing that he's selling is just so believable. And also it's bearing fruit. It's evidenced, it's corroborated by what's going on. And we had all of that. So for me, the thing he's given me is, in a very basic sense, memories of a time in my life that I'm just going to always look back on and think. I think I put in the epilogue of the book. Yeah, I think I say those days were lived, And I think that we'll all have that, no matter what. Forget about the last 4 games of the season. That means that's arbitrary. No one in a year's time, no one in 2 years' time is going to give a shit that we went out of the Europa League to Atalanta. I said to someone the other day, actually, who knocked Man United out the Champions League in 12-13. No one can answer me. It was Ferguson's last season. No one can answer me that, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. No one's defining Alex Ferguson's tenure at Manchester United by what happened to them in the Champions League in his last season. Yeah, they won the league, but look what happened the next season there. It's about a body of work over the time. And so that's what we'll remember from Jurgen. Being alive, living days, a time in your life where, you lived it.
Yeah, I think I'll miss just as you like just being a human being, more than a
Yeah.
football manager, just somebody that, because I'm from Thornby, so he lives around the corner, and from where my sister is, and he's he's I've had mates bump into him, and there's not this big aura about him. He's just a regular person that's just a really good football manager. That it's just, I think I'll miss his humour, like his presses. Like he's just a smart human being, and but what he's brought to me is just this joy. Like I've loved watching Liverpool for the past 8 years. Not that I haven't before, but the style of football and just the person that he is,
Mm.
taking time out to, talk to people on the street. Just, I'll miss his fist bumps. Arteta can try and do it all he wants, but it looks cringe, and so does the LA. That's just even more cringy. But I'll just miss the little things for me, and
Yeah.
it is going to be a sad day. But as we all know, as Liverpool supporters, a sad day can turn into a really better day with the next manager or the
Mm.
next player that comes along. Everybody thought for me, after Kevin Keegan, there would be nobody else. Kenny came in and did
Yeah.
the business. So it's not all doom and gloom after Klopp leaves. But obviously massive shoes to fill for any manager to come in. But people need to stop going Klopp 2.0. There won't be another Klopp. There never will be. The next
Yeah.
manager has to put his stamp on the team. But yeah, it will be a sad day. I might might have to go in another room and have a little cry. But
Mm.
that's all right. Men
Of
can
course.
cry these days.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be really heartfelt. I don't know how he's going to get through that last game in loads of ways because he's an emotional person. And so, yeah, I think for him, it's going to be something that he's going to have to approach and deal with. And I think it's a good point that you mentioned about the fact that you can just see him around Formby, and you can sort of feel his presence in the city a lot of the time. And I get quite fascinated about what Liverpool means to him, because that is ultimately something that we probably still don't know a lot of, because he's just been on the treadmill of managing a football team for the last 8.5 years. And not only, let's have it right. The job he does goes beyond the sum of the parts of what he's employed to do. He operates in loads of ways as a top level CEO in finance or in the corporate world. The amount of management he does and the amount of work he's across. So, I think in time, one thing I'd love to know is what Liverpool means to him, and that's the thing that's the thing I've really tried to explain in the book is, what is Liverpool? Like, Liverpool is so complex in loads of ways as a place and as a concept and as a culture that ultimately is the reason why you'll encounter people who really despise it and decide that it's not for them because they see it as individualism, and they see it as performance based sort of behavior. But has anyone actually tried to look into why Liverpool feel the need to boo the national anthem, for example, and how far back that goes. Has anybody ever tried to try and sort of look at the economic stats around Liverpool and some of the failed projects that have been left at the hands of local government, and the ways in which the city's had to fend for itself in loads of different ways, since Thatcherism particularly, but even before then. And again, this is all something I try to link back into what I've written. I read a book just before I started work on my project, called Boomtown by Sam Anderson, and it tells the story of the Oklahoma Thunder basketball team, but it tells it in conjunction with just telling the story of Oklahoma, which just is this basket case of a city that wasn't even a city that long ago, and just comes to be through these crazy set of circumstances, through these unbelievably cavalier people. And I really got the sense of a place. I don't invest myself in basketball, but if I did, I'd be an Oklahoma Thunder fan, because I understand the concept of the place now, as well as the sporting organisation. And so, I think I really wanted to get across, well, what is Liverpool? What is Liverpool to certain people? Who holds up Liverpool? What is Liverpool Football Club to the city of Liverpool? What do you know about Liverpool's, if you want to call it, entitlement as an opposition supporter, that is based on any kind of historic knowledge? Do you know that, for instance, Winston Churchill aimed gunboats towards the city during the postal strike of 1912? Do you know that? No, or whatever it was, it might be another date, I might have got the year wrong there, but there's just that thing of Scousers and people who are invested in Liverpool from outside of Liverpool understand Liverpool. But, how much of that influences Jurgen Klopp's time there? How much of that makes a place the place it is when he walks through the door on October 5th, 2015? Because the place has existed for such a long time before, and the place is made up by all these different organisms, not even in the city, around it. You, as somebody who's from Formby and who's grown up in Merseyside and, has had a huge investment in the city, now become a person who, like myself, living in London, externally looks in on Liverpool as a place. But it's about understanding it, and it's about meeting it in the place that Jurgen Klopp met it in 2015, and then what it went on to become. Rory Smith, I'm a terrible name drop here, but Rory Smith gave me a review for the book because he read it, and typical Rory Smith fashion, he puts it into better words than I could ever do, and it's my project. But he said that it was a wide-ranging exploration of not just Klopp and what he means to Liverpool, the club, but also what the city of Liverpool means. And that's a really nice thing for somebody to say about the work that I've done, because that's really what I've tried to portray, is what does Liverpool mean as a city? Because if you understand what Liverpool means as a city, then you understand what Jurgen Klopp has done for the city of Liverpool and the football club. And so I'd love to see him sit down and, however long it takes for him to do so, and just explain what Liverpool means to him and the mark it's left on him as a place.
Yeah, I think it'll come out. I mean, it might take him, a little while, but what's your thoughts on, because I had a pub chat, because we had to, do the review of the match yesterday, so down the pub, about the parade. I think the parade was kind of talked about because of, how well we're kind of doing in the Europa League and the league. What's your thoughts on that? Because for me, it's a no-go. I'd rather him stand, at the Liverbird building with a microphone and just do it that way. It's I don't know. He deserves for us to be all there. I'm planning to go home for it. But yeah, what are your thoughts on a big massive parade?
In a lot of ways, the first thing I think about is logistics. I think it'd be really hard for him to to stand in front of the Liver building and give a speech, because I just think it's really hard to get that to house that many people in one place. And that. So, is there anywhere in the city that could be a big enough open space for Jurgen Klopp to address it? I don't think there is. I just don't think there is. And I think from a logistical point of view, unfortunately, people don't like this thing, but you've always got to consider it. From a health and safety point of view, if you propose that to Liverpool City Council tomorrow, they'd be having kittens. Because from a health and safety point of view, it'd just be a massive, massive risk. And I think that forms part of the reason why I would always have a parade is because, secondfold, there's just so many people who don't get to be inside the stadium and see these things play out in real life, in front of their eyes, really. It's different watching these things on TV, and some people might just prefer that experience, and that's fine. Some people might say, I'm all right where I am, thanks. I don't need to travel anywhere to see a fella 50 feet away on a bus just go past me and stand there for 4 hours when he goes past in 30 seconds. Like, no thanks, that's fine. But even if you just talk about people from within the city who can't afford to take their kids to Anfield, young kids who want to start following football who can't afford or get accessibility to Anfield, they, for me, deserve a chance to see that. I'd always have a parade. I would always have a parade. And I think the third reason why I'd always have a parade is because there's a lot of turnover of players in the summer. And I think we underplay what impact these things have on players. I think if you were Alisson Becker or Virgil van Dijk or Mohamed Salah in 2018, the minute you turn that corner on that bus onto the Strands with the European Cup, you realise how big Liverpool is. You realise this is an incredible thing to be part of. And I think it changes a few of them. I think a few of them sit up and go, this is massive. This club is huge. This club it's a behemoth. It doesn't exist within this city. It is just everything to the people who are invested in it. And I think, especially if I'm sort of talking after last night, I think there's a few players who could do with seeing that for themselves and just that little short, sharp reminder that Liverpool is a very, very big club and Liverpool is everything. I introduced the book with that Jurgen Klopp quote that he says when the club put out that short video after we win the league, and he says, to paraphrase, he says, this club means everything to the people, so it's our job that it means everything to us, or something along those lines, that we give everything. And so that sense of, oh, this is everything, this is their lives, I think is never a bad thing to see.
Well, before we go, like I said in the beginning, I definitely want you to kind of talk about James's place. I've actually got a really good guest coming up. You know him, Rohan.
I know Rohan, yeah. No, Rohan, yeah. He's just
and just his story is just one of hope and determination as well. So I didn't even know you worked for James's place, and Rohan had told me. I told him you were coming on, and he was like, "Well, ask him about James's place." And then I was like, "I didn't even know you worked there." So please tell us more about it.
James Place is a service which helps men who are in what we deem to be a suicidal crisis. And, usually that's people who have just found that life is really hard to navigate. They've reached a certain level of hopelessness. They can't see any hope for the future. And they've decided that suicide is the best way for them to end what they're going through. it was born out of the tragic death of a young man, James Wentworth Stanley, who went looking for help in a suicidal crisis at the age of 21, and he didn't feel like he got the help he needed. And he ultimately, he took his life. And his legacy is that we provide that space in that time critical period where men come to us and they say, I'm really at the end and I'm really struggling and I can't go on anymore. And we give them a short-term therapy-based intervention that's one-to-one talking therapy in a centre which, I can honestly hand on heart say this is, so warm, so welcoming, so non-clinical. And that really makes a difference, because a lot of the people that we see are people who've, never encountered a mental health issue before. They're not known to any mental health services. They're just people who've gone through a really, really standard but really tough life event that we can all go through. Your sort of relationship breakdown, your job loss, your sudden bereavement. These are things that we all encounter in life, but they've ended up at a point where they feel like suicide might be the best answer for them. We're saying it's not. We're saying we can help you find that hope for the future, but also we can do it now. And it's been a really amazing journey for James's Place. They started the service in Liverpool in 2018. They opened a centre in the Georgian Quarter in Catherine Street. It's a wonderful, wonderful centre, a wonderful building. The sort of the origins of James's Place and the people who helped set it up, a lot of them are still there today. And that's including a person called Jane Boland, who's our clinical lead for across the service. And Jane, Jane's a massive Liverpool fan. She's someone you can see at games. She'll be in taggies. She goes to games. She's a wonderful advocate of not only the work we do, but she's also, she's an incredibly knowledgeable mental health professional and has worked in many different sectors around suicide prevention over the years. And, Jane is, like I said, she's somebody who has helped so many people. And, it's great to see that now we are a centre that not only exists in Liverpool, but in London and Newcastle as well. We have aspirations to get bigger and open more centres in England. And, I think we can do that because ultimately we know that our intervention and our service works. We're clinically evaluated regularly. We can say through our own figures now that we've helped over 2,300 men out of a suicidal crisis. And so, it's really, really good work. And it's just really, really, to be honest, it's just really, really fulfilling to work there. The culture, the people, the level of professionalism and skill that I encounter every day is really, really inspirational for me. So I'm really happy I just got the opportunity to come to London and work for them. And, people like Rohan, who do incredible fundraising ventures for us and, help raise money so that we can be a charity that grows and exists to see men, are incredibly inspirational also. So, I'm looking forward to hearing the pod with him, because he's doing some incredible running right now, and he's raising some brilliant money. So, his story is an unbelievable one, and one that, should be told far and wide.
Yeah, that's that. I what I do usually on Mondays is once I drop my kids off, I start looking for people's stories that just inspirational, because these days there's so much negativity on the telly. There's just just bad everywhere. Especially after the COVID and everything, and just reading and I had him on before for about an hour, not even recording. He just wanted to kind of learn what I wanted to get out of from him, because it is a kind of a personal moment, personal journey, what he's been through. And
yeah
I'm still, I've only heard 1% of it, and it's just if more people can hear his story and take the time, like if they're having, their own issues. And I think, for us, especially around Merseyside or just working class families, you couldn't really talk to your dad about your issues. You couldn't really talk to your mates. Now you can, you put your arm around your mates. You can tell he's not doing all right, and you just like, let's talk. And I think more people
Yeah.
need to start talking to each other. I told me missus the other day, I think that's part of the issue with our society right now is technology is great, right, Dan? We wouldn't be speaking like this if it wasn't. But there's too many
Yeah.
people got their faces in this and talking like this.
Yeah.
Like I've always said, like if you want to talk to me, like pick up the phone and talk to me. Don't text me. I can't stand texting. I think it's an easy way out. But from what you do and what Rohan's doing, just amazes me. I mean, the I don't want to say joy, but like what you get out of it must be incredible to help all these individuals because a lot of them are at the lowest point. For them to think that way, they want to end their life. Now they can go to a place where they can have a chat, they can get therapy. My hats are off to you and the whole community at James's place.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, I never fail to be inspired by our staff, particularly our therapy team. They're absolute superstars. They're wonderful. And long may it continue and long may it grow and expand, which we're hoping to do.
Well, I hope so too, mate. But I appreciate you coming on, spending a little time with me, and good luck with the book. I will definitely be getting it. Where can you get the book? Is it going to be on Amazon?
It's on Amazon now on pre-order. It's also on WH Smith, Waterstones, other booksellers. Yeah, I think also that the only other thing to mention with it is that yeah, we're looking to bring it forward in terms of the release date. It was originally scheduled for the 10th of June, but it looks like we can bring that forward now. So just keep an eye out. Really, you can follow me on Instagram, Dan L Morg. That's ANLMORG, or on Twitter or whatever it's called now, Dan_Morgan3. I think I'm not on there that much, but on both of those platforms there is a link tree, and it'll show you different ways in which you can buy the book if you want to. Not planned. I've had a few people asking me about Audible and stuff like that. It's not planned, but it might be something that happens in future. So yeah, just keep an eye out. And I can only say, I hope people enjoy it. I hope people feel like they can resonate with it. I hope feel like they got something from it. And same for you, Daz. I hope you enjoy it when it comes out.
Oh, I'm sure I will. And I'll put a link to the book for Amazon and everywhere else, and I'm going to put a link to James's place as well.
Oh, amazing! Thank you very much.